joining me is Dr. Roger D. Klein, MD, JD, pathologist with a subspecialty board certification in molecular genetic pathology. Dr. Klein, thank you for your patience. Great to have you again, sir.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me.
Well, Doctor, we love having you on because you make sense. That's number one. Number two, all your predictions so far have been accurate, unlike the other models that have all been totally inaccurate. I want to get to a couple of studies, get your comments on them. I've got Dr. Andrew Bogan joining us at 9:35, Stanford, also USC. Here's two studies that say, based on the analysis, that the number of people that have the COVID virus, Dr. Klein, could be understated by, enormous numbers, like 850% or something like that. They did a study in LA and they found 20,000 people don't have it, 400,000 people have it. They did a study in Stanford on Santa Clara County and found out that up to 1/3 of everybody in the county has it. We're getting all these numbers, Dr. Klein. What is going on here?
So what's going on is something that many of us predicted, or some of us predicted from the beginning, that we were testing people and we were defining cases based on testing people, and we were directing our testing toward the sickest and the most affected people, those in hospitals, and we created what's called ascertainment bias or selection bias in our whole program, in our approach. And so it's obvious that there were many, many more infected people than actual cases. And this is what we're just showing that it's not just those two studies, it's all around the world. I mean, there are a number of studies that are all pointing in the same direction. We don't know exactly what the number is, and there's a lot of uncertainty in these ranges, and it, from region to region, it could potentially vary. But I think we're seeing what I think many of us expected, and this is what usually happens. But the implications of it are, of course, that the disease itself, for most people, is much less severe than we were originally told.
When the so-called experts, Dr. Roger Klein, are getting on television and other media sources, and they're saying, well, we can't get back to normal because there could be a spike. One of the things I've complained about is anybody that I ask, either a government official, an administration official with any of the state governments, a politician that is saying this, I said, well, define spike. Define it. Like, what is the metric? They never give me a number. So what's a spike?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they're probably speaking more in terms of functionality. The concern that I think is a more legitimate concern is that the healthcare system will be overwhelmed by a very large number of cases in a very small or short period of time. We really haven't seen that happen, and a lot of people are going to say it was because of the measures we've taken. We really don't know, though, and we don't know what works, what didn't work, how well it worked, how much is due to other factors. So, but I think that's kind of what they're looking at. The other question that people are raising, we sort of moved the goalposts here now, and instead of talking about overwhelming the healthcare system, we're talking about preventing death, which is on much shakier ground, I think overall, and on the long run. I don't believe we're going to get rid of this by locking people down or house arrest any more than we could get rid of the flu that way. And the costs, of course, are extremely, extremely high. So we're going to need to learn how to deal with. We need to move forward, and we're going to have to learn how to deal with it, with the understanding that for most people, it's this is a mild infection, and we need to focus our attention on protecting those at highest risk and taking sensible measures to protect the rest of us.
So, Dr. Klein, Roger Klein, let me just get this straight. When you say moving the goalpost, something that I've brought up from the beginning, first we were sold on this, not overrunning the hospitals, not overrunning beds. Everybody got that. Then it was running out of ventilators. Everybody got that. So we all stayed home. We all closed up our businesses. Many of us are now facing tremendous economic pain and hardship, but we got it, right? Everybody's in it together. I was there, shuttering in place. I get the whole thing. Well, then we have enough ventilators. We have enough beds. Then it changed to, like you said, people dying. Well, now we're finding out that, dying really is bad. We don't want to lose anybody, but a lot of the people were at risk anyway. And secondly, the number of deaths right now is on a par with the common flu. So now they had to move off that. Now they're going to testing. So it's like, okay, we can't open up your business. We can't get back to normal. You can't go to work until, I guess, 350 million people get tested. I mean, what does the testing thing do? Because here's the thing. I'm going to Georgia Monday, right? I could leave on Sunday night, test negative. I could be driving to Georgia, get gas, put my hand on a gas pump, get the virus Monday night, right? Or Sunday driving down, right? Possible. Do I have to get tested every day now in perpetuity?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of workplace testing, there may be some limited situations. I mean, we test, I don't know, places where they have legalized prostitution, they test prostitution, the prostitutes regularly. So I think there may be certain areas where it pays to test people either for antibodies, like healthcare workers, for example, or for the virus. But in general, I think we need to move to managing this like every other disease. And I mean, I don't want to minimize it because for some people it's extremely severe, and we have lost a good number of people, as we do from other things. But I think again, the model of testing is important. We've done an amazing job, by the way, and it is spectacular what the laboratory community has done in terms of coming together and generating millions of tests in just a few weeks. But I think that that's going to be a very important part of managing this like a disease. You get sick, you go to the doctor, you get tested, you find out if you have it, and we do our very, very best not to spread it, especially to people who are particularly vulnerable. And with the understanding, and it's very sad, and I hate to say it, some people are going to die from this. I mean, it is what it is, and I think it transmits too easily. Most people are not seriously affected, so there are too many mild cases. And I just don't think we can't control it in that type of way. We can protect ourselves on an individual basis using hygiene and we can have some reasonable public health measures and then do a really good job of protecting people like elderly sick people. We can do that. And I think we're gonna do every bit as good a job over the long run as we would with this very crude tool of kind of chasing around a very fast-moving insect with a sledgehammer.
So what is the objective here of the politicians and the other policymakers that are continuing to say we need to shelter in place, stay at home, don't open business up, let the economy crash? I mean, Fauci gets on TV every day saying, it's a new normal. You'll never shake hands again. It's the end of the world. No baseball, no football, nothing. I mean, why do they continue to do that when basically what you're saying makes perfect sense? Shelter those that are highly vulnerable. The majority of people that get it have very little symptoms. It's bad. It's a nasty virus. I mean, it's, some people I've talked to that have had it recovered, but, they were in discomfort. It was painful. So why are the politicians continuing to shut things down?
Yeah, well, I think, they generated this horrible panic and hysteria, this huge amount of fear, which I don't, I think has been very, very unhelpful, and we're creating an unrealistic expectation that this is going to go away and no one's going to die from it if we just stay in our houses. It's not going to happen. I mean, that seems very, very unlikely. I wish it were true, but nothing else behaves that way. So, and given the characteristics that we know now, it doesn't seem it's going to work. So I don't know what every politician's motivation is. I think there are people, I think Ron DeSantis in Florida, he seems to be moving in the right direction, doing, trying to balance the considerations and listen to the different voices and move forward in a good way. I think people are talking about locking people down for months and weeks, and these people are removed from everyday life. I mean, they don't understand. These are people who are safe and secure, and they don't have to worry about their finances, at least not in the normal way. But we have millions of people who live from check to check, and ordinary people need to get moving again. And this is it's very unhelpful because it also it makes people fearful of getting going again, and rather than letting them understand that there are ways we can deal with this. And for most people, the risk is going to be small, at least of serious illness or death.
So, Dr. Klein, I'm doing my show from Atlanta, Georgia next week, traveling around the state. Governor Brian Kemp, the first governor in America, opening up the state, says he's had enough. Basically, he's buying into your thesis here, saying that some people are going to get sick, they're going to get over it, but we have to get back and we have to live. Dying is no way to live. So that's what he's said. So, what do you think is going to happen in Georgia in, say, the next 60 days, sir?
Well, if they start having close contact occupations, I mean, I don't know. I was kind of a little wondering about the bowling alleys where you're sticking your hands in a bowling ball, but I think that we may see an increase in spread and numbers of cases. Maybe the summer's the time to do it as we change seasons. This looks as if there may be seasonality. I mean, we haven't, in Australia and New Zealand, for example, we haven't seen nearly what we've seen here. There may be other reasons for that, but one suspects it may be because there's a seasonal effect. And so, the summer would be the time that you'd want to kind of get moving on it, where the spread, the likelihood of spread is going to be less. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, as long as they're trying to be safe and using a lot of common sense approaches, and people don't actually use poor hygiene, as long as they're doing the kinds of things they ought to be doing, I think it'll be okay. Sweden has done that, and they don't seem to have done worse than anybody else in Europe. So I know some of the other Scandinavian countries maybe haven't had as much a problem, but as far as Europe generally goes, they seem to be doing fine in Sweden. So as long as they're safe, I think it'll be fine.
So let's take North Dakota as an example. She never really did a shutdown there. The governor kept everything open, and they pretty much had it under control. Then at one of the processing plants in Sioux City Falls, there was an outbreak, and they did all the testing, and 300 people had it. They shut the plant down, sent them home. And so that was all over the news, front page of the New York Times. Panic sets in. There's a spike. There's a surge. But then when you follow up with that, doctor, I wanted to bring this up because it kind of fits in with what you're saying. These were younger people that were working at the plant. 300 of them got sick. None of them have died. Only a handful have actually been hospitalized. So the New York Times had 3 headlines about it, front page, but yet no follow-up, that no one died, a handful were in the hospital, and yet that was the panic of the day, that, my God, look what's happening in North Dakota because the governor didn't do anything. But it's kind of what you're saying, like 300 people got it, okay, they were sent home, packing plant shut down for a while, but there's no casualties so far.
Yeah, I mean, this may be, the kind of thing where we're really, for the population, only, maybe 1 to 3 out of 1,000 people would really die and be expected to die in the first place. But I think, we're going to have outbreaks, and we have to understand some people are going to get very sick. It's going to be more commonly older sick people, and people are going to die from this, and it's going to happen in Georgia. And there may be more in a short period to whom this happens there, but then they're getting their lives going, and I would argue that you're not locking everybody down isn't going to prevent that ultimately from happening. It's going to be individuals we're going to be protecting specific individuals, taking responsibility for protecting themselves and making really, really strong efforts to protect people who are prime, are really susceptible. I mean, elderly people in nursing homes, for example. I mean, we could devote a lot more energy toward trying to protect those folks who are accounting for increasing numbers of deaths. I think we need to be more targeted and more nuanced and aim our resources more better, while at the same time allowing people to replenish their own resources rather than deplete them by staying at home and devastating millions of them, the finances of millions of Americans, and shuttering a quarter of the small businesses in America never to open again. These are dire forecasts that we have. So I think we need to balance considerations. Unfortunately, we don't live in a risk-free world, and we need to be a bit more nuanced about the way we move forward, rather than what we've been doing, which is extreme in my view.
Well, we're out of time, Dr. Klein, but just as we're on the phone, reported today another 4.4 million Americans sought jobless benefits, unemployment benefits last week, bringing the 3-week total, or I guess the 4-week total now to 25 million people on unemployment, a significant part of the U.S. workforce in a month. Unbelievable. That's why, Dr. Klein, you're so right. Dr. Klein, thank you for being with us today. Thank you. I really
Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
it.